Russia's terror on Ukraine sparking calls to protect America against the other major threat, Communist China. Here's Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton this week on Fox.
That we're trying to do now on an emergency basis in the last 15 days in Ukraine, like providing them weapons, we should be doing now with Taiwan. Everything we're doing to break away from the Russian economy, to put a distance between our economy and theirs, to get our companies out of Russia, we should be doing in China again right now.
And joining me right now in his first interview since returning from Taiwan and Singapore, where in Taiwan he received a very warm welcome with billboards and the Medal of Honor celebration, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Secretary, thanks very much for being here.
Maria, it's great to be with you this morning.
So before we move on to your trip in Taiwan, I want to get your take on what you heard on the ground, your reaction to the breaking news this morning. An American journalist, a photographer, has worked at the New York Times, has been killed in the fire that has continued throughout the night. Secretary.
Well, I'm obviously sad for that journalist, the journalist family. But this is the kind of thing that happens when you fail at the core mission set of American security, which is to deter the bad guys from continued aggression. The Biden administration has been behind since last summer. We think about this now as being less than 3 weeks old, but of course, we've known for months that Vladimir Putin was building forces and building capability. We should have been helping the Ukrainians build forces and capability, and we were too late, too slow, too small at every turn. We still are. There's still enormous hesitation, Maria. You know, the last thought here is everyone in the Biden administration talks about if we do anything, there'll be provocation. My observation, I think the world can see, is that what's provocative is the weakness. What's provocative is being behind. What's provocative is letting Vladimir Putin drive the agenda and the mission and the timeline. And you have the Ukrainian people who want to stand up to defend their homeland, and we've let Vladimir Putin walk all over them with no response that was serious, timely, and strong to give them the tools the Ukrainians needed to do that mission set.
But why? I mean, why isn't the response better? Why isn't it more immediate? These are terrorists that are terrorizing a part of the world. Why are we talking about limitations to the support that we can offer?
It's pretty unexplainable in some sense, Maria. But if you go back to the strategy that the Biden team laid out when they first came into office, indeed the things that he campaigned on, right, the top priority for them was climate change. They are prepared to work with Xi Jinping, with Vladimir Putin, with all comers if they could get somebody to shut down a coal-fired power plant. Vladimir Putin scoffs at that. He understands hard power. He understands real strength. And this administration has talked about things that are ephemeral and temporary and weak. Remember when they shut down an American pipeline, the Colonial Pipeline in the southeast part of the United States? You couldn't get gas for a few days. The response from this administration to Vladimir Putin when Biden met with him was, don't do that again. That's not a serious response that Putin would respect. And you can see he's ratcheting up the pressure. He's continuing his advance in Ukraine. His objectives haven't changed. And he's going to continue this assault, this march, until he meets a United States that's prepared to help the Ukrainian people defend themselves in a serious way.
Let me move on to your trip to Taiwan and Singapore. Clearly, Secretary, so many people are watching the CCP and its next move, given its past comments about taking back or reuniting with Taiwan. What did you hear on the ground?
So I've talked about the fact that Ukraine is an absolute tragedy. We've been behind. What I'm really worried about is cascading series of crises overnight. There were Iranian missiles fired near a U.S. consulate in Erbil, Iraq. When I was in Taiwan, I saw the Taiwanese worried about the same thing, a series of cascading crises that affects them and their lives. I made the statement when I was in Taiwan that we ought to do the simple thing of recognizing their independence. Everybody knows that they've never been part of mainland China, communist China. They don't want to be. So we ought to be doing the things that we failed to do last summer for the Ukrainian people. We ought to be doing for Taiwan. The Trump administration did that. We worked diligently to provide weapon systems to the Taiwanese. The Taiwanese are getting ready. They are prepared to do the hard work themselves. But they're going to need support from the United States, from Japan, from South Korea. These Southeast Asian countries, I traveled to Singapore too. These Southeast Asian countries are all worried. They know Xi Jinping is watching. He's watching America abandon Afghanistan in such a disastrous way. He's watching the United States get rolled by Vladimir Putin. And Xi Jinping is watching the things that America is prepared to do to help our friends and allies around the world. If we don't help the Taiwanese people prepare to defend themselves, this will only embolden Xi Jinping.
Let me run this soundbite from Marco Rubio this week in the hearing in the Senate. Got to get your take on this part of this conflict. Watch this.
Does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of.
Secretary, if we knew that Ukraine had these biological facilities before Putin went in there, why didn't we move to protect them? Now we're worried about the potential for chemical, biological weapons, as well as these taunts on nuclear weapons as well.
Where you remember the history of Ukraine, there were nuclear weapons there. They were largely dismantled and moved in the 1990s. But there's a long legacy of the Soviet Union that still remained inside of Ukraine. We've all watched these nuclear power plants come under attack by the Russians as well. We should not underestimate Vladimir Putin's determination. So whether it's legacy biological systems inside of Ukraine, whether it's the nuclear power plants themselves, Vladimir Putin has intent on succeeding. And you have to get back the capstone level of deterrence that I worked on so hard for 4 years to convince Vladimir Putin, Chairman Kim, the Ayatollah, that we were going to put pressure on their regimes and that the costs of these kinds of malign activities would far exceed any possible benefit for them. When you lose that, what Undersecretary Nuland said this week about biological weapons or biological systems inside of Ukraine, those are the kind of things that put the world at risk, not just the Ukrainian people. This is serious stuff, and it requires more seriousness than this administration has shown. They sent the vice president to the region this week, and she has only shown confusion and weakness. I promise you, Putin's watching those video clips too. This is not good for the Ukrainian people. It's not good for NATO and Europe, and it is not good for the United States of America either.
Secretary, what do you advise the administration to do right now?
Give Ukraine every tool that they need to defend themselves. They've shown their willingness to do it. They've shown their capability of doing it. And they have shown that they know how to execute against the advance of the Russian military. It is a tough slog. The Russians are determined. They're big. They're powerful. But we need to make sure that Vladimir Putin knows that the cost for this, the cost in Ukraine in terms of bloodshed for his own military, and the cost back home inside of Russia to the Russian people, will far exceed the costs that are imposed on the West, whether that's on NATO, Europe, or on the United States of America. We need to make sure that the balance is right. And so then in the end, Putin has to concede and make a set of decisions that are vastly different than the ones he's been making these past months.
And Secretary, final question here on your trip. Do you expect the CCP to try to invade Taiwan after what it has witnessed throughout this debacle in Ukraine?
Xi Jinping is determined. He's made clear his intention to, quote, reunify, end of quote, with Taiwan. What tools, what tactics, what timing is difficult to know. I only know this. It is not predetermined that he'll be successful at that. He'll be successful at that if we're scared, if we think that taking action to support the Taiwanese people is provocative to Xi Jinping. It's not. This is an independent nation. They know it. The world knows it. We ought to behave as such, and we ought to provide them the tools they need to maintain their own sovereignty. This is important, Maria, for the whole world and for the central idea that has allowed Western civilization to advance in the way it has these last years. We can't walk away from that.
And Ukraine was an independent and is an independent nation as well. Secretary, it's great to have you this morning. Thanks very much for your important insights and for your travel.
Thank you, Maria. Thanks for having me on.
We appreciate it. All right. Thank you, Mike Pompeo.